Being too loyal at work can be very costly, and in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly why. Hey everybody, it's Brian from A Life After Layoff, and today I want to talk about the hidden cost of being too loyal at work. Now, we're all told and ingrained that being loyal at work is a positive trait and something that we should strive for. Our fathers and our fathers' fathers all instilled this work ethic in us that we should be loyal to a company to a fault. And many of us have worked long careers at a single employer, giving all of our blood, sweat, and tears in the form of corporate loyalty. However, the brutal reality of the last 2 years in the labor market, a lot of these same people are finding that loyalty might be a one-way street and not to the benefit of the employee. So in this video, I'm going to break down a couple of hidden costs that could really impact you in your career and set you pretty far back. And if you haven't seen my video on why a steady job is bad for your career, make sure you check that one out as well. But before we get too far into it, if you're interested in more career-related content just like this, directly from a corporate recruiter and a career coach, hit that subscribe button. So I know somebody that has worked for the past 20 years in the same job, in the same company, the same division, etc. He is the proverbial person that has gotten very comfortable. He was well liked in his organization. He was considered a steady Eddie, and he plugged away day in and day out. He was not somebody that had high career aspirations. So at his level, the level that he achieved, he was relatively comfortable. He wasn't looking to climb the corporate ladder. And he'd known his bosses for a long period of time. The leadership team knew exactly who he was and what he brought to the table. He was working on some of the company's more valuable programs and projects, and he was generally considered to be a solid contributor to the organization. And every year he had his performance appraisal, which was spectacularly steady. Not too high, not too low, but again, he was well regarded, was certainly not a low performer. And with the performance appraisal came his yearly merit raise, which usually reflected the cost of living, 2, maybe 3% in a good year, sometimes as low as 1. But he usually got his performance bonus incentive, which usually equated to a few $1,000s per year. Of course, he was happy to go to the yearly holiday party. He collected his free turkey, and everything was good. So after one day, well into his 21st year at this organization, he gets a call from his boss to come into the office, and he is delivered a pink slip. And they say to him, "Bob, we want to thank you for all the years of service that you've spent at the organization. We certainly couldn't have achieved what we have without you. However, there's been some changes with our business, and we've had to make some tough decisions. And unfortunately, your position is going to be affected." Bob is listening to this meeting intently, but he starts to zone out, and suddenly the room starts to get much bigger, and he can't believe what he's hearing. In fact, he was probably in shock as he was listening to this and almost assumed that they had gotten the wrong person in the room, because surely they wouldn't be targeting Bob, the most steady, long-term performer in the organization. So across the table, they slide a folder with the terms of his severance, and they ask him to sign it. And a few minutes later, Bob is escorted out of the HR person's office over to his desk, where he is required to clean out everything and put it into a few boxes. So he goes around and shakes a few people's hands as he's holding back the tears, saying, "Well, I guess it's been a good run, but my time has come." And what shocks Bob the most is how he's treated. His computer's already shut down, can't get into any email. His badge no longer works at any of the doors, and an HR person is hovering at the end of the hall waiting to escort him out. So with his head held low, he walks slowly out of the office for the very last time and heads to his car. So flash forward a few weeks, Bob, who had been thrust into an unwanted job search, suddenly finds himself floundering. He had assumed with nearly 30 years of experience in the industry doing all these great projects with very important customers that he should have no problem jumping back on the market. He had his trusty old resume, an old cover letter that he dusted off, and he had been hitting the pavement hard. Yet his phone was just simply not ringing. He was not getting any interviews. And the very few interviews that he got, he discovered, were for roles that were much lower quality than the job he just got laid off from. They paid worse, they had worse benefits, the processes were archaic, and they didn't value his years of experience the way his previous company, or at least he thought they did. So it represented a massive step backward for him, and he was completely defeated. And to make matters worse, all the best employers in his industry were demanding a level of skill that he didn't have, because they were demanding exposure to technology, software, and processes that he had never bothered to develop because his previous company didn't value it. They already had their own set way of doing things. Yet the entire market had passed that company by, and a defeated realization came across his mind. He was hopelessly out of date and trying to play catch up in the market that he was in was almost impossible. In other words, the market had completely passed him by. Feeling your defeat, he decides to contact me, and we quickly diagnose his issue. 15 years early into his career, a new disruptive technology came out that kind of split the market. And from that technology, there are several other technologies that split off of it. And the technology that his company decided to stick with was something that they were very comfortable with, but was no longer the industry standard. However, Bob was apathetic because he was getting a steady paycheck. His company liked the processes, the systems, and the software that he was using, and both he and his company felt no reason to upgrade his skills because they didn't see any value in it. And the mistake that Bob made is that he didn't keep current on the skills himself because he felt like he was a lifer there. He had put 20 years in, and there was no way that he would ever be subject to a layoff. He was simply too loyal for that. So we had to put together a strategy to address the skill gaps on his resume because it became a much bigger process for him to get a job than putting together a great resume and hoping for the best. Because at the end of the day, no matter how optimized and pretty your resume looks, you still have to have the skills that employers demand to have a realistic shot in the market. The other thing that he came to learn is that he had also fallen pretty far behind on wages because what had happened during those merit increases with the 2, the 3%, just keeping pace with inflation, what he found was that entry-level people coming into his organization were being paid nearly the same as him, even though he had 20 years of experience. They were only 5,000 or 7,000 less than he was earning. And that realization hit him hard because when we sat down and did salary research for him, we determined that he was actually underpaid by the market by nearly $20,000. So the good news is that once Bob does get his foot back in the door, he can likely earn an additional $20,000 from his previous base. But because he's so far out of date, it will require a lot of careful interview strategy to try to get him there. So my recommendation here is 2 things. Number 1, we always have to act like a free agent. And a free agent is always looking at the current market and what the skill sets are and what employers are demanding. And we have to acquire the latest and most up-to-date skills so that our resume is as marketable as we can be. And while we shouldn't operate out of the fear that our job will be eliminated to a corporate downsizing or layoff, we should always be prepared in the case it is, or in case we find a better opportunity that we can pounce on, because that's what a true free agent does. And unfortunately, Bob didn't act like one in his 20 years. You have to keep in mind that even though your current employer may not value those skills, those methodologies, that education, etc., other employers likely will. So you need to keep a pulse on what's going on. And the same thing goes for wage data. I would encourage you to take a pulse of the market at least once every 2 years so that you can understand where you currently sit inside the broader industry's ranges. And if you feel like you're falling behind, you can make proactive steps to either address it where you're currently sitting or start to prepare yourself for a possible move to get where you need to be. If you're sitting here listening to this saying, gosh, that sounds just like me. I don't know what to do. I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling very similar to Bob. You've actually come to the right place. I actually have an entire website set up dedicated to all of this stuff, to helping people achieve their career aspirations. The website has got a ton of free information on it. I would highly encourage you to check it out. And I basically share my deepest and most intimate coaching knowledge. And I've created these courses so you can go through essentially what's the equivalent of 12 to 15 separate coaching sessions with me on demand and when you need them. The first one is called Resume Rocketfuel. It's designed to teach you how to write a resume that is going to give you the best chance of getting noticed by those recruiters in order to get into the interview process. And it's not just how to write a resume, but it's actually resume strategy. So it's a much deeper course than that. It teaches you how to use your resume as a strategic document because that's exactly what it's for. And once you get into the interview process, it's then up to you to sell yourself throughout the rest of it. And that's where the Ultimate Job Seeker Bootcamp comes in. It's newly revised. It's got a wealth of information all the way from job search to job offer, and everything in between. You go through that course, you'll be completely prepared for anything a corporate hiring process is going to throw at you. And more importantly, we make sure that you don't leave any money on the table. So check that one out if you're having trouble in your job search. And if you want to jump all the way to the front of the line and bypass the recruiter, which I would highly encourage, then make sure you check out Unlocking LinkedIn because it teaches you how to use LinkedIn as a job seeker to get those recruiters to start noticing you and to access the hidden job market. So all those tools work together. and give you everything that you need for your career. Hey, hopefully you found some value in this video, and if you did, I would appreciate a thumbs up because that does help me get this message out to a broader audience and lets me continue to make this great content for you. Appreciate you watching, and like always, we'll see you on the next one.